Since the dawn of consciousness, humanity has stood in awe of a single mystery: death. No matter how advanced our civilizations became, no matter how far science reached into the stars, the final question remained unsolved. Religions offered visions of paradise and judgment. Philosophers meditated on the immortality of the soul. Scientists searched the brain for the spark of awareness. Yet the veil between life and death remained opaque. But what if, just once in a while, that veil parted? What if someone, not through imagination, but through lived experience, stepped across and returned to tell us what lies beyond? In the 20th century, Arthur Ford, a medium both celebrated and criticized, dared to speak of such visions. His accounts were not vague poetic symbols, but vivid descriptions, landscapes, encounters, explanations. He insisted that after death, the soul does not vanish but awakens, free, ageless, and radiant. To many, Ford's words were shocking. To others, they were confirmation of what mystics across cultures had whispered for centuries. Life is not extinguished by death. It is transformed. And so we ask, what did Ford see? What truths did he claim to uncover? And could his visions point not only to the afterlife, but to the hidden nature of reality itself? Arthur Ford's life was one of paradox. A man of deep faith and psychic gifts, yet also plagued by physical suffering. His heart, weakened by years of illness, became the doorway through which he glimpsed eternity. During a critical illness, when doctors had given up hope, Ford described floating free of his physical body. At first there was silence, then an extraordinary calm. He looked down at his earthly form, pale and motionless, and felt no fear. Instead, he felt relief, as if he had shed a heavy garment that no longer fit. What followed resembled countless near-death testimonies recorded in modern medicine, yet with details startlingly his own. He drifted through an endless void, timeless and weightless, until the darkness opened into a valley of light. The grass glowed with emerald fire, mountains shimmered as if alive, and air itself seemed to pulse with energy. Then came the most astonishing vision: loved ones approaching him, smiling, vibrant. Yet none of them looked as he remembered. The grandmother who had died, wrinkled now, appeared radiant and strong. Children lost too young had grown into the fullness of adulthood. Each soul stood not as the body had decayed, but as the spirit had chosen to manifest, young, luminous, whole. This was no dream, Ford insisted. It was as if death had peeled away illusion, revealing the eternal essence beneath. And for the first time, he realized aging was not real. It belonged only to the physical shell, never to the soul. For called to form, he encountered the beta body. Unlike the fragile flesh, the beta body was luminous, responsive, and unbound by disease or time. It was, he claimed, the true self, the personality distilled into essence. Modern science might scoff, but the idea is not foreign. The concept of subtle body appears in Hinduism as the Sukshma Sharira, in Theosophy as the astral body, in ancient Egypt as the Ka. In each case, traditions speak of an invisible vehicle that carries consciousness after death. For believed humanity errs in assuming we have only 5 senses. Mystics argue we have deeper faculties: intuition, clairvoyance, spiritual perception. These, he claimed, belong not to the flesh but to the beta body. At death, these latent senses awaken fully. Science, too, edges closer. Quantum physicists speak of reality as fields of information rather than solid matter. Neuroscience admits it cannot explain how subjective consciousness arises from brain tissue. Could it be that awareness exists not in the brain alone, but in a subtler field, one that survives bodily death? If so, Ford's beta body may not be fantasy, but metaphor for a deeper truth, that consciousness is fundamental, and matter only its temporary cloak. Perhaps Ford's most moving revelation was the claim that in the afterlife, age is a choice. Souls appear not bound to the years they carried on earth, but free to manifest a form that best reflects their essence. This is echoed across traditions. In Tibetan Buddhism, the bardo, the intermediate state after death, is said to reveal the soul's true form, often radiant and ageless. In Christian mysticism, resurrection is described not as frail bodies rising, but as glorified forms shining like light. Even Plato, in his dialogues, hints that the soul belongs to a realm where beauty and perfection exist beyond time. Science gives hints as well. Aging, biologists say, is not a necessity but a breakdown in cellular repair. Some species, like jellyfish, can revert to youthful states. If nature itself carries seeds of immortality, might consciousness, freed from matter, embody eternal youth? Ford chose to appear as a man of 45, the age at which he felt most whole. He stressed that this was not vanity, but alignment with essence. In the afterlife, appearance is not dictated by biology, but by inner truth. The implication is profound. The face we wear beyond death is not what the world imposed upon us, but what our soul chooses to reveal. Ford's visions did not end with landscapes and forms. He described encounters that reshaped his understanding of memory, morality, and destiny. He was first greeted by his parents, who appeared youthful and radiant. Their embrace was not physical, but it carried warmth more real than flesh. Then he entered what he called a room of memories. Here, his entire life replayed, not in fragments, but in totality. Every choice, every word, every silence unfolded before him. Yet this was no courtroom. No divine judge sat in accusation. Instead, Ford experienced his life from the perspective of others. He felt the joy he had given, the pain he had caused, the love he had withheld. It was as if the soul, freed from ego, became its own witness and teacher. This idea is echoed in near-death research today. Countless survivors report life reviews marked not by condemnation, but by profound understanding. Could it be that death unveils the ultimate empathy, the ability to see oneself through every other's eyes? Finally, Ford found himself by a forest lake, where he was told he could rest, to grow accustomed to his new body. Here, he realized that afterlife existence was not eternal slumber, but continual transformation. The soul was not static, but dynamic, capable of growth in realms beyond imagination. Skeptics dismiss Ford as a dreamer, yet his visions resonate with surprising echoes across philosophy, science, and mysticism. The Swedish scientist mystic Emanuel Swedenborg claimed in the 18th century to converse with souls centuries old, all of whom appeared in the vigor of middle age. In his writings, he insisted that aging is absent in the spiritual world. Modern near-death studies, led by researchers like Dr. Raymond Moody, collect testimonies eerily similar to Ford's: luminous valleys, radiant beings, life reviews. Neurologists may attribute these to oxygen-deprived brains, but the consistency across cultures remains striking. Philosophers, too, have long intuited that death is not annihilation. Heidegger called death the most authentic possibility, a horizon that reveals the truth of being. Carl Jung recorded visions near death where he floated above Earth, feeling liberated from the prison of time. Even physics whispers parallels. Einstein showed time is relative, not absolute. Quantum theory suggests consciousness may play a role in shaping reality itself. If time and matter dissolve at fundamental levels, might the afterlife be simply the deeper layer of the cosmos, where consciousness freed continues to create? At last, Ford reached his central insight. Death is not the opposite of life, but its continuation. The body decays, but consciousness endures. Suffering ends, but growth continues. The terror of illness, the dread of mortality, all dissolve in the beyond. There, he felt curiosity instead of fear, renewal instead of decay. Death, he realized, was not a wall but a door. This echoes the teachings of mystics across time. The Bhagavad Gita declares, "The soul is never born, nor does it ever die." Christ proclaimed, "In my Father's house are many mansions." The Egyptian Book of the Dead describes a journey of the Ka through transformations, never ceasing, always becoming. For Ford, the lesson was clear. We are not our wrinkles, our scars, or our failures. We are essence, radiant and eternal, and death is simply the unveiling of that truth. So we must ask, should we fear death or prepare to meet ourselves in our truest form? Arthur Ford died in 1971, yet through his visions and writings, his voice still speaks. Whether we take him literally or metaphorically, his message carries weight. The dead never grow old. What if this is not fantasy, but destiny? That when we cross the veil, we are greeted not as shadows, but as radiant selves, free of time, free of pain, free of fear. And so, we'll leave you with one question. If you could appear in your truest form, beyond time and age, what age would you choose? Perhaps the real mystery is not whether there is life after death. The mystery is whether we are ready to face ourselves when we arrive there.